everyone. Today I am going to explain about accounting for consignment. First, let us see what is consignment. Consignment is a transfer of possession of goods from a person called consignor to another person for the purpose of selling goods on a commission basis. There are two parties involved in a consignment agreement. They are consignor and consignee. Consignor is a person who sends the goods for sale to the consignee. Consignor is the owner of the goods. And the consignee is a person to whom the consignor sends goods. And the consignee sells the goods for a commission from the consignor. Commission is a reward payable by the consignor to consignee for selling the goods of the consignor. So, these are the two parties involved in the consignment. Next, let us see what are the features of consignment. First feature of consignment is that only the possession of goods transfers from the consignor to consignee. The ownership of the goods remains with the consignor. And second feature is that the consignor sends pro forma invoice to the consignee and consignee sends account sales to the consignor. Third feature is that the risk, losses, expenses associated with the consigned goods are borne by the consignor because the ownership remains with him. Next, let us see the objectives of consignment. First objective of consignment is to increase the sales growth, and for the expansion of business, consignor can consign his goods to various consignees. And second is to capture the entire market. Through sending goods to various consignees in different parts of the world, a consignor can capture the entire market and sustains in the market. Next is utilizing the consignee skill. Consignor can utilize the skill of another person in the process of his business or to increase the business of the consignor. Next, let us see the advantages of consignment. First is the increased sales and expansion of business. And next is a person can utilize the expertise of another person in his business. And third is lesser inventory cost for the consignor. Next, let us see the limitations of consignment. First is risk associated with the unsold goods or goods getting damaged. In certain cases, goods may be sold at a price lesser than the actual cost. And second limitation is the negligence or disinterest from the part of the consignee may cause a problem in the process of consignment. Last one is high shipping charges or high transportation charges to the consignor. These are the limitations of consignment. Next, let us see the terms used in consignment. Accounts for sale and pro forma invoices are the two statements prepared in the process of consignment. First, let us see what is pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is a statement prepared by the consignor and sent to the consignee, including the details of quantity, quality, description of the product, price of the product, etc. And the purpose of the pro forma invoice is to convey information to the consignee regarding the goods consigned. Next document is account for sale. Account sale is a statement prepared by the consignee and sent to the consignor, and it includes the information like sales made, any advance given, and the balance due to the consignor, etc. So, these are the two important documents in consignment. Commission. Let us see what is commission. Commission is the remuneration paid by the consignor to the consignee for selling the goods of the consignor. Commission can be classified into two categories. First one is ordinary commission and second is special commission. The special commission can be again classified into del credere commission and overriding commission. Let us see what is ordinary commission. Ordinary commission is the commission charged by the consignee on the gross sales proceeds. Next is special commission, and special commission can be classified into two, del credere commission and overriding commission. Let us see what is del credere commission. Del credere commission is the additional commission payable by the consignor to the consignee for taking the responsibility of collecting the debt from the consumers. If the consignee sells the goods of the consignor and he undertakes the responsibility of collecting the amount from the customers, the consignee is rewarded by the consignor by paying additional commission known as del credere commission. Next is overriding commission. Overriding commission is payable by the consignor to consignee if the consignee sells the goods of the consignor at a price higher than the actual cost of the product. Next is difference between consignment and sale. Let us see what are the differences between the consignment and sale. Consignment is When the owner of the goods transfers the possession of goods to another person for selling purpose, it is known as consignment. And sales is a transaction in which goods are exchanged for a price. When the buyer pays price, the seller have to exchange the product to the buyer. This is sale. Second is the parties involved in consignment and sale. In consignment, there are two parties involved, consignor and consignee. In case of sale, the two parties involved are the buyer and the seller. Next is relationship between the parties. The relationship between the consignor and consignee is like agent and principal. Consignor is the principal and consignee is the agent. Consignee have to follow the instructions and directions given by the consignor. Consignor is the principal and consignee is an agent. Next, in case of sales, the relationship between the seller and buyer is like a debtor and creditor. Next is possession and ownership. In case of consignment, only the possession of goods transfers from the consignor to consignee. The ownership of the goods remains with the consignor. In case of sale, the ownership of the goods transfers from the seller to buyer at the point of sale. When the buyer pays the price of the product, that time the ownership of the goods transfers from seller to buyer. Next is returning back of goods. Consignee can return the goods unsold to the consignor, and in case of sales, the buyer cannot return goods to the seller if the seller does not permit the return of goods, the buyer cannot return the goods. Next is risk of loss. In case of consignment, risk of loss is borne by the consignor because ownership remains with the consignor itself. He have to bear all the loss associated with the goods consigned, and in case of sale, the risk of loss are borne by the buyer. Next is expenses incurred. Expenses incurred in case of consignment is borne by the consignor, and the expenses related to sales are met by the buyer. Next is consideration. In case of consignment, consideration to the agent is a commission. And in case of sales, the consideration for the seller is the profit. These are the major differences between consignment and sale. Thank you.